Hi everybody, this is Michael Hildebrand and I'm your host on the Sleeptrust podcast, where I'm talking about how to gain back trust in your ability to have a superb sleep again. As announced in last week's episode of the Sleeptrust podcast, when we were talking about habits, in this week's episode we will dig into gratitude. And gratitude is a thing that is very fundamental for us human beings. And I believe that everybody should put a little bit of focus on gratitude, and it's proven to increase our health, our happiness, things like self-esteem, empathy, and of course sleep. And that's why we're talking about it here and today. I found a little YouTube video that will walk you through everything that gratitude is proven to improve in our lives. And it's only 2 minutes. I'll put the link into the podcast section of this episode under sleeptrust.eu, and you might want to check that out. Well, let's start off having a brief look at the relationship that gratitude has on sleep. And this is not a direct kind of a cause-effect relationship. It's more an indirect kind of a relationship, as if you imagine this to be a kind of a 3-layer story. You have the bottom layer, that's our sleep. You have a layer above that, which could be things like stress, anxiety, depression, anger, these bad kind of emotions that tend to go around our head when we go to bed and can't keep us from falling asleep or keep us from sleeping as long as we want to. And above that, we've got the gratitude layer. And basically the gratitude affects the layer underneath that in terms of vanishing away those bad feelings, at least to a degree that you should and we should be able to fall asleep better. To give you a picture to work with, you can imagine our mental stability to be a kind of a sponge. And as we go through a day, let's say in particular a bad day, this sponge gets soaked up with water representing these bad kind of feelings. We get stressed, which would be a little bit of water going into the sponge. We are a little bit depressed maybe because of things that are not working out. We could also be a little bit angry because somebody annoyed us. And when we get to the evening, this sponge is full of bad emotions. And what gratitude can do for us here is to take the sponge and just really squeeze it and squeeze out all the water that's in there, or at least most of it. It will certainly be a little bit moist, even if we open the hand afterwards. But when we open it, the water has been replaced through fresh air representing good feelings, feelings of happiness, connectiveness, these kinds of things that are really favorable when we think of laying out a basis for good sleep. And the best thing about it is that gratitude is really simple to practice, and it doesn't take a lot of time. You just need about 5 minutes to do so, and you do so maybe 5 minutes before you go to bed or at first in the morning. As we are talking about Sleeptrust, obviously we would prefer to do so in the evening right before you go to bed. And what you do is just to think about little things that you're thankful for. And you do not have to get sophisticated about this. It's the little things that you should think about here, like being thankful for the air that you are breathing right now, in this moment, that's keeping you alive. Being thankful for your kids, your spouse, your friends, for your new pair of shoes, a bird singing a song, for the beauty of a flower. It can be anything. And if you have issues finding these little things, I picked a little YouTube video. It's about six minutes long to give you a little bit of inspiration what you could choose at the beginning. And I'm sure as soon as you get a little bit of praxis, these things are just going to flow naturally through your head. What you can also do to get even more senses involved is to write down those things that you're thankful for. And you can do so by just using a notebook. We will also give you for free a cheat sheet you can download to support you writing down those things. And the last thing that is actually really worth having a look at too is to use a gratitude journal. There are a couple of them out there. I particularly had good experience with the 5-minute journal, and I would recommend you to just find out what suits you best here. Practicing gratitude is a fundamental habit that I do every day. Exceptions, of course, prove the rule here. And I do so by writing down things that I am grateful for every evening right before I go to bed. At the moment, I've got a daily planner which I use to plan my next day out, and they have a special section for gratitude. So it's the last thing I do after planning out my next day. And when I get up in the morning, it's one of the first things I do is to grab my daily plan, have a look at what I want to do and achieve in this day. And after that, I tap into this gratitude section again to tune into this grateful, thankful feeling. Doing this gratitude practice has helped me to feel more relaxed, happier, and somehow connected on a deeper level, I would say. It's somehow as if I feel as I'm a connected dot in this universe. You know, if you think about this Big Bang Theory and where we're all coming from, and there are scientists digging into atoms and quantums, and they found out that they found this little, I'm not sure if it's quantums or other pieces that may even be even smaller, that are hooked up together. They have this kind of connection that if you turn around the one piece, the other one will turn around at the same time. And the very special thing about this is that the scientists do not see any kind of connection between these two parts. But obviously they are connected at some level. And somehow I believe that it's with this, as soon as we dive into this gratitude feeling and connect with the things around us in the universe and put our lives into a bigger kind of a picture, it gives us this really fulfilling feeling of being part of the whole. So that's at least how it is for me. I'm really happy to hear your feeling, your experiences with gratitude. I'm sure they're going to be positive, and I would be happy if you share your experience with me. Just drop me an email at podcast@sleeptrust.eu, and I'll be happy to read and respond to all of them. So let's wrap up this episode of the Sleep Trust podcast. Gratitude can not only make us feel healthier and better, but it can also help us perform better sleep. It does so by squeezing out all these bad emotions like anxiety, stress, depression, and it takes only 5 minutes thinking of little things that you're thankful for to do so. Try to implement this action as a habit as soon as you can. If you want to know how to build up a habit best, I recommend listening to our last podcast episode around habits. We will also feed into the podcast links of this episode a couple of resources, as there is the YouTube video which will walk you through all the positive effects in 2 minutes of gratitude, a little YouTube video on inspiring you of which things you can be thankful for, and we're going to give out a cheat sheet for free to help you to write down the things you are thankful for. With that, we're going to bring this week's episode to a landing. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I am thankful that you took your time to listen to this episode. Next week's episode, we're going to talk about sleep duration. I hope you tune in again, and until then, have a superb sleep. Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Sleep Trust podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to get further information on this podcast or material that will help you to gain back your sleep trust, please check out sleeptrust.eu. That's sleeptrust.eu, where you will get lots of information around sleep. And here comes some legal stuff. Everything on this podcast is my opinion only, so do not take it as an advice, as I am not a doctor, nor have I considered your personal situation. If you feel that you need medical advice, please consider getting an appointment at your doctor of trust. If you want to give me any kind of feedback on this podcast, feel free to email me at podcast@sleeptrust.eu. I hope you tune in again next week, and until then, have a good sleep.